Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Epic Comics Wednesday, when Michael K. Vaughan and I combine the forces of stately Vaughan Manor and Hyde Cottage to talk about the comics that misshaped our lives. We started out by talking about Marvel's Epic collections, but we've since moved on. We've both read a lot of DC comics as well, so we've since moved on to DC Comics. And last week we did Adam Strange, fascinating character, fascinating concept. And today, as revenge, Michael is calling the tune here. I'm not picking any of these things. He has decided to throw a spotlight on one of the dumbest, worst comics that DC has ever published. And not only that, but to call it great. This is not the first time that I've heard someone call this comic great. Totally mystifying as to why. Now, I'm going to show you a brief glimpse of the gigantic 1,000-page, $500 omnibus volume that is one of the 500-page omnibus volumes of Doom Patrol that Michael owns at Vaughan Manor. But I'm not going to hold the screen up for long because it's one of those situations. It's pitch dark today. It's 70, but it's pitch dark, and it has been all day. And the lighting is such that I cannot get this picture to resolve. I cannot get it to stay anything other than a white sheet of glass, and that's not going to do any good. I think I can angle it to give you a glimpse. You see, that is about the best that I can do. You can kind of sort of make out the details. There's enough computing power in this machine and the machine I'm filming on to run the world and to maneuver a nuclear submarine through the Straits of Gibraltar and to put a man on the moon. But you can kind of sort of make out this comic book image that I'm trying to show you. If the manufacturer of these devices put as much time into their onboard light sensors as they do into the sensors that are harvesting my information without my permission, this wouldn't be a problem. But instead, that's about the best I can do. In order to get a picture of this thing, you're really going to need to look at Michael's video. I'll leave a link to it down below in all of its insane glory. Emphasis on the word insane. This is a loser superhero team from the 1960s. It consists of, you're not going to be able to make him out, but there's a guy in a wheelchair, the obligatory guy in the wheelchair, the chief. And he collects around him a group of misfits as a superhero team. There's Elastigirl, the tall girl that the woman, there you go, that you can see in the background there. See, it worked until it realized that it was working, then it stopped. She was a movie star, and then she swam through a pile of dredge, and it gave her the ability to, wait for it, ladies, misshape her body. She was the Ms. Marvel of the 1960s. She mostly uses this ability, as you can see on this cover, to be giant-sized. Not misshapen, just a giant-sized version of herself. I say mostly, but really most often in the comic, we see her in her resting state. As a normal-sized, normal-looking person. Why did it interrupt her movie star career? Well, we're going to get to that. It has to do with the biases of one of the creators of Doom Patrol. You also have Robot Man, that metal figure there that you can't make out in this blob of light. Who was a race car driver in a massive accident, and the chief manages to put his living brain inside a robot body. How does the chief manage to do this? We don't have any idea, as the chief spent his entire life as a robotics expert. He'd have to be 150, 200, 300 years ahead of the best robotics experts in the world, which means he'd have to devote his entire life to it. Never mentions robotics. It doesn't seem to be all that hard for him to put this character's brain inside a mechanical body, which raises a whole bunch of questions. Number one, did you also put the driver's circulatory system inside the robot body? Because if you didn't, the brain's going to die in about a minute. It doesn't matter. The brain isn't a thing all by itself. It requires a circulatory system. It requires pints and pints of irrigation every single day, or it will die. And it also raises the question of, if you can give this race car driver, did you need his entire body to be pulped? Did you need every single organ to be dead? First of all, if every single organ was dead, if every single organ was pulped beyond repair, then the driver wouldn't have made it to the hospital before brain death set in, let alone survived long enough to get a robot body made. I'm assuming that the chief didn't have one just sitting ready to go. And whether he did or not, well, if you can make a robot body for this race car driver, can't you make robot legs? for yourself, not to be too ableist on the point. But if you're confined to a wheelchair, I presume you wouldn't want to be. If you can make a robot body that can respond to the neural input of the brain inside it, what about your own brain? Can you make robot legs for yourself, or robot exoskeleton of the legs for yourself, so that you don't even have to remove your own legs? Presto changeo, you don't need the wheelchair anymore. Not to mention the fact that if you're going to make a robot body to house this brain, and if you are on some level thinking that this character is sorry to be waving this around, I might as well be criminally. If you're thinking this robot body is going to be the vehicle for a superhero somewhere down the line, why didn't you make it more durable than a 1985 CD player? You no sooner have to brush against Robot Man, who, keep in mind, is the heavyweight of the team, in order to cause his parts of his to sproing off in all directions. The other character featured on this cover is Negative Man, who is a high-flying astronaut of some kind when he encounters a band of negative radiation in the atmosphere that supercharges his body. So he has to wear facial bandages like the Invisible Man. No idea why. Does he have a body under those bandages, or doesn't he? And if he does, why would it be disfigured? And if it is disfigured, who would care if he lives in a mansion all by himself? But he has, as you can see and barely see in this cover, he has the ability to let loose a version of himself that has his consciousness and I guess his vocal cords and his eyes, that is composed of negative energy, of the energy that irradiated him. It seems to be able to do pretty much anything that he wants it to do. Can he cause it to look like a normal version of himself and therefore continue his job as a pilot? Apparently not. Is there some particular reason why he can't be a pilot with bandages? It's never really said one way or another. Also, is it in any way ethical for him to be conducting himself as a superhero? He is a superhero not by walking around as a guy in bandages, but by releasing his negative man self to do things here and there and otherwise, exposing everyone around him to the same negative radiation that turned him into Negative Man. Which would make, Negative Man people all over the place. Instead, he seems to be the only one who's susceptible to this sort of thing. And if negative energy were really a thing and it gave you superpowers, wouldn't American academia be full of superheroes? Wait a minute. American academia is indeed full of very dangerous supervillains. So maybe that is the reason. Maybe they do have a negative energy. Later on, the Doom Patrol has been rebooted a million times. It was the original version of a comic book company constantly rebooting something that is a flop, that no one likes, except for the dude bros out there who claim to love it more than anything else. Claimed to love it when it was called just the Legion of the Strange, or whatever its first name was. Yeah, the first 1.5 appearances were great. It was all downhill after that, dude. One of the later incarnations of Doom Patrol had the Negative Man gender swapped to Negative Woman. And one of the crusty old comic book shop owners that I knew at the time, rather un-PC, said, "That's a little redundant, ain't it?" This is the team at first. The team is soon joined by another character, an obvious mental patient who has mental powers that are given to him by a weird helmet, and also Beast Boy, a young boy who gains, through a weird circumstance, gains the ability to change his shape into any kind of animal. The same accident that gives him that power also gives him green skin, green hair, so he'd fit in well on any college campus today. But it doesn't explain why a 120-pound boy can transform into a fly that weighs less than your eyelash. Where does all that mass go to? Or when the 120-pound boy turns into a full-grown male African elephant, where does all that mass come from? It's the familiar problem with shape changers. And this team gathers together around the chief, and he convinces them to devote their lives to fighting crime. It's totally unconvincing, more unconvincing than usual. And they just jolly along with having one ridiculous, and I mean stupid, not ridiculous as in it would never happen in the real world, but just stupid adventure after another. Poorly written is the word I'm looking for here. Which gets us to the creative team. There are a whole bunch of people who, because Doom Patrol just never seems to die, because the Dude Bros out there just keep this thing going. In one failed incarnation after another, the team originally was killed off by one of its original creators, and then it was brought back with newer, lamer members, including Negative Woman. And that one dispersed because fans just weren't interested. It was back again. DC has tried a million different things to make this team stick, including what I have to presume is the measure of last resort, which is backing a dump truck of cocaine up to Grant Morrison's house and saying, whatever you do with this, we'll take. As usual, if you want to see the gigantic 2,000-page, $2,000 omnibus edition of Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol, you need look no further than Michael's video. He has every single thing printed about this team of losers. And part of the problem here is just the original conception. There are a whole bunch of people. There are two parts to the problem of Doom Patrol. One is the original conception, in that the people that originally conceived and executed Doom Patrol, from the writers to the artist, had no talent whatsoever. And that's a bit of a controversy. One of the writers who was distantly connected with the origin of the creation of Doom Patrol, and who would have liked a little of the money involved, was a writer named Bob Haney, who was a comic book writer and a hack novelist for his entire career. But don't let that fool you. He was a cop. And not just any kind of cop. He was an Andy Sipowicz kind of cop. Those of you who know your NYPD Blue. He was an Andy Sipowicz kind of cop. He had just that level of imagination. Also that level of determination, which is why he never stopped writing. But he had just that level of imagination. That's just how he saw the world. There were perps and skells, and then there were stand-up guys. And then dames who, if they come anywhere near a little sludge, well, then they're a misfit, whether they can resume their normal shape or not. Bob Haney is perhaps the worst comic book writer in the history of the industry for Marvel or DC. The Herb Trimpe of writers, as it were. He never met a character that he could write in character. He spent a long, disastrous stint writing Batman, of all things. And his Batman is a joke. Laughably ridiculous. Exactly what Andy Sipowicz would think of as a superhero. Yeah, get these superhero guys. They got these wacky powers. You got to put scales away, tune them up, and then put them away. All of his characters read the same, male and female, and none of them are any good. And none of the stories he comes up with are any good. And let's not even talk about Doom Patrol's villains. Oh my. Oh my. Let's not even talk. Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man, I think, or was it Parcheesi guy? I don't know. There are a lot of them that were all really, really lame. Until a much, much better writer and a much, much better artist, Marv Wolfman and George Perez, got a hold of them for Teen Titans later on. One of the longest lasting legacies of Doom Patrol was that Beast Boy went on to become Changeling. Same character. He just grew up a little and was a teenager, and he still had his superpowers. He left Doom Patrol and joined the Teen Titans when Marv Wolfman revived the team, to huge success. He'd be impossible to do now. He was an open sexist, an open misogynist, but he told them as jokes. He told those comments as jokes. But that would have gotten Marv Wolfman firebombed in his car, even if they were clearly jokes. So today, not possible for there to be that kind of Beast Boy. But it doesn't matter anyway, since I think Beast Boy has been reconfigured as pansexual or something, whatever further out on the spectrum is pansexual. I don't have any idea. Characters unrecognizable now, as are all DC characters. But that was the longest legacy. And of course, if you have Beast Boy, formerly Beast Boy, Changeling, as a member of your team, and your book's doing really well, Teen Titans, one issue, any issue of the Marv Wolfman George Perez run of the Teen Titans sold better than every single combined issue of every single incarnation of Doom Patrol over the course of 50 years. One issue of the Wolfman Perez Teen Titans sold 80, 100, 120,000 issues. That's more than Doom Patrol has ever sold. And of course, Marv Wolfman brought Doom Patrol back for a guest appearance in the original run of his run with George Perez on the Teen Titans. And that was the best realization of these characters they've ever had. But every writer out there thinks the Doom Patrol is some sort of undiscovered gem that if I can just get my hands on it, I'll make it sing, I'll make it right. There's genius there. There isn't. There isn't. Partly because Bob Haney was involved right from the beginning. Now, there might be a dispute about who actually created Doom Patrol, or later Metamorpho, I would say, just judging by the results, the creator was solely Bob Haney. That's how bad these things are. But there's another reason why Doom Patrol, let's just put this atrocity down. There's another reason why Doom Patrol was doomed, no pun intended, from the start, why it was bad from the start, and that was a familiar villain here on Epic Comics Wednesdays, the baleful influence of Stan Lee. At the time that this was happening, needless to say, you're probably, even if you haven't watched Michael's video, you're probably thinking, okay, a super genius in a wheelchair assembles a team of misfits. That sounds a lot like the X-Men. And there have been all sorts of accusations back and forth over the years about who stole what from who and when. The point isn't whether or not these guys all went out for drinks with each other. So it's possible that there was a bit of unconscious mimicry going on. The point isn't that. That happens all the time. The point is, one clear example of the fact that it happens all the time and that it's still happening now is that currently the lineup of marquee Marvel superheroes, Fantastic Four, the Avengers, the X-Men, the Hulk, and the marquee lineup of DC superheroes, Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, the Justice League, right now, at the end of 2021, not one single of those characters in any of those marquee properties is straight. That's not, so that is an indication to you that these fads are like a viral infection and that it can happen across companies at any time. So that's just one reason why Doom Patrol was doomed from the start. The other reason was Stan Lee changing the industry so that misfits and abrasive personalities and people who don't really have any motivation to fight crime would be your heroes. They would be your super team. When that doesn't work at all. Your heroes are supposed to be larger than life. They're supposed to be better than you. That's the whole point. Not after Stan Lee got his hands on the industry, and that is why part of the reason why Doom Patrol has been so terrible all along and will be so terrible all along. The only possible way that you could renovate this creation of Bob Haney's would be to stick to the way that the writers of Doom Patrol originally envisioned, which is that they didn't make much of an impact on anything. They had a whole stable of lame-ass villains. No one knew who they were or trusted them in any way. They still did the right thing, right down to putting their lives on the line and dying for a tiny town in Maine no one's ever heard of. That's a great story. How a team of misfits was still willing to give it all to be heroes. That's a great story. Having characters in the modern DC universe remember the original Doom Patrol. Never the sacrilege of reforming a name with that title, but instead remembering the example of the old Doom Patrol. But no survivors. No survivors. Maybe Beast Boy. Maybe he wasn't there at the time, but no survivors otherwise. That would work. So no Bronze Age Doom Patrol, no John Byrne Doom Patrol with all sorts of code-worded pedophilia. No Grant Morrison Doom Patrol with him just living out, his overdoses on the page. No, nothing like that. No, nothing like that. Instead, it would be just that in the world of superhero teams, the Justice League and the Teen Titans, and even maybe the Justice Society, that in the world of superhero teams, all of these teams would have, as an example in the past, a superhero team that gave it all, that gave up everything, that sacrificed everything. That would be great. That would renovate the Doom Patrol, but only in the past. There's no way to renovate this assembly of losers in the present. So there you go. That's my Comic Book Wednesday. That's about all the energy I have for the whole day. Those of you who get off on watching me and Michael disagree, well, you've now had your jollies for right in time for the holidays, because we disagree completely. He actually called this crap good. Great, I think he said in his video. I'll leave a link to his video down below. Maybe he'll convince you. There's nothing great about this. It's just pure garbage. And it's a persistent minority of fans, a tiny handful of fans. The only reason that they've ever managed to get so many reboots of this crappy property off the ground is because half of them went into comic books. And so we're able to throw their weight behind it. To no avail. If you look over Michael's shoulder at all of his $3,000 omnibus editions and think maybe I'm missing something, you're not. You're not missing anything. Except maybe, long dissociative diatribes if you were ever trapped as a guest at Vaughan Manor, as Michael goes on and on about how great Doom Patrol is. Oh, fantastic. No, it's not. But maybe those of you who seek peace and harmony will have better luck next week. I don't actually know ahead of time what Michael's going to pick from week to week. We'll see if he picks something we can agree upon next week in the spirit of the holidays. I'll see you then. Thank you, BookTube.